Allow me not to say much, and I would like to welcome our speaker, Makgati, who is the Group Executive from the Information Security Standard Chartered Group, South Africa. She will introduce more during her presentation. Her presentation is more of cybersecurity in the digital banking, threats, challenges, and solution. I would like to request all our audience and crowd, please keep asking number of questions from her, and definitely that questions I will pose on her, that so that she can answer us and give us more knowledge sharing in this platform. Welcome, and please take this cue from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fahim, for that introduction. Thank you very much. Let me just share my presentation before I go into the actual discussion. Cybersecurity in digital, in digital banking, looking at threats, challenges, as well as solutions. As part of Banking Transformation Africa Virtual Edition, it would have been nice to be in the same space so that we can network and collaborate, but I'm hopeful that we are getting closer to a time where we're able to go back to those kinds of events. So let me just go straight into it and share some of the thoughts around threats that we're seeing now and challenges, and how some of the solutions can be applied from a technology perspective in the banking industry, focusing on digital banking and how that can be resolved. Right, now the COVID-19 pandemic was a stress test of unprecedented proportions for banks, putting our technology architecture, our strategies, our workforces under immense pressure. Yet amid the many challenges of the pandemic, silver linings could be found in how quickly banks were able to adapt to a new reality. Most worked fast to rebuild their businesses with a digital core that could support a more flexible workforce, a more agile operating model, and a range of emerging customer needs. You hear a joke going around where people ask what triggered or what fast-tracked digital transformation in your business. Is it COVID-19 or something else? And people say COVID-19 in a lot of businesses and a lot of industries has really fast-tracked digital transformation. We've been asked to rapidly deploy remote interaction solutions to make up for the lack of face-to-face engagement that is so critical in a banking industry, especially in Africa, where you still find, if you look at statistics before COVID, a lot of people still prefer to walk into a branch to do their banking instead of interacting remotely with a banker. We've seen a shift in this if we look at our stats from 2019 into 2020, coming into 2021, where there's been a huge increase in the adoption of digital banking, where smartphones or mobility is becoming the core of how we do banking with our customers, or how we collaborate and interface with our customers. And this has required us that from a customer experience perspective, we come up with solutions on the phone or on the tablets that will ensure that our customers are able to have the right experience and receive everything they want from wherever they connect them from. So this required us to look at new technologies and new ways of doing things and how we design our solutions. But these new information technologies is really introducing new threats, as much as we're coming with new capabilities and things that we can do. As an information security executive, the first thought is, if we bring in a new technology, how do we ensure that we're doing this in a secure way, that we're not compromising the trust that our customers have, that we're able to protect them, protect the activities that they do with the bank. So responding to these threats will require new security skills. That's the first thing that we realize, that there's a gap in the skills that we have to be able to provide all of those new requirements. The scarcity of these skills is driving cybersecurity leaders to embrace yet newer technologies in an attempt to fill the gap. And a secondary thing that we're seeing is that security failures are driving governments to introduce new regulations, further increasing the demands on already strained security teams. Thus, there's no doubt that organizations are now operating with a renewed sense of purpose. With technology as an enabler, how do we ensure that we still stay connected to our customers? We're able to retain clients. We're able to attract new customers into our businesses because of the trust that they would have on the technology that we have. So that's just at a high level, the problem statement when we look at things that we need to be addressing. So now, if we think about future-proofing a digital bank, it really requires to think differently and shift from the way we were thinking previously as technologists within the banking industry. We need to learn much faster. We need to adapt and grow. We need to learn about emerging threats, new threats that will impact the business and social environment. These are shifts that are changing the way we interact with technology, and banks must learn about them and foresee the impact they will have before they even get impacted, which is a key role that needs to be played by security professionals in the banking industry. We need to adopt emerging technology. But I really want to caution against the hype. We need to be aware of the hype that comes with a lot of technologies. Most of them could promise a lot of functionality and overpromise on some of the things and underdeliver. It is really the role of the security teams to separate fact from fiction and make informed decisions on how to leverage emerging security technology. Thirdly, we need to grow by delivering outcomes. This is something we cannot compromise on. As much as we're still focusing on delivering new technologies and looking forward, on a day-to-day basis, we're dealing with an environment that's continuously changing, where there's an expectation to deliver on outcomes and ensure that we protect our technology estate. So we need to grow, but still continuing to deliver on those outcomes. New threats and new technologies will require new skills. Unfortunately, the skills gap is already large and it continues to grow. Bank security leaders need to understand how to deliver on required security outcomes in a continuously changing environment without that army of security analysts that you would have at your command under normal circumstances. So how do we navigate this and still be able to deliver on those outcomes without compromising on a forward-looking view? If I think of some of the emerging tech trends that can support cybersecurity, we look at things like cloud computing, which may prove to be the greatest disruptor of traditional information technology yet seen. However, the rush to the cloud could be undoing some of the benefits that we might have gotten from technology in the past. There are significant challenges facing security teams as the banks continue to chase their place in the sky as part of players within the cloud computing space. That's just one technology that's really making a huge shift in how we operate. Another technology that's really coming in to change how we operate is 5G networking. 5G networking has the capability of actually improving cybersecurity, and we've seen that through multiple use cases. However, before we can take advantage of this new technology, we need to face the hard facts about Internet of Things and IoT security. If we look at things like our cars, our thermostats, manufacturing, robots, all of that moving to the edge. We need to explore the road ahead for this important technology, understand what it means and how we can benefit from it as technology leaders within the banking sector. So those are just some of the things that from a technology perspective, we need to be thinking about as we move forward. Now, I'd like us to just maybe deep dive into cloud and understand how we benefit from cloud and how is the landscape changing when you look at cloud technology. There's an increasing number of companies that have adopted the cloud first or the cloud only strategy. It's very common that you hear that when you look at different technology architecture strategy. Even without a cloud first strategy, many organizations still continue to move workloads to the clouds, which, let's be honest, continues to increase their exposure. The complexity of properly securing cloud instances is expected to increase, while the availability of appropriate skills and resources to do the work that needs to be done to protect the data still remains scarce. If you think of the Capital One breach in 2019, it really reminds us of the potentially huge cost of making a mistake when it comes to cloud security. A Flexera report of 2019 says that 39% of companies have already adopted a cloud-first strategy. I'm sure if we were to look at this now in 2021, the number will be much higher as this was done pre-COVID. There are now an estimated $12.6 billion estimated spent on cloud security tools alone, estimated to hit that by 2023, according to Dark Reading. This is evidence of how cloud computing is now at the core of digital transformation in all industries. This is not just limited to the financial services industry or banking. So the question that comes with this is really, can cloud security tools save us from ourselves? Because we're really not able, from a human capital perspective, to close the gap, because we really have a skills shortage. So can cloud security providers augment and provide some of the capabilities that we're not able to provide internally? In an IBM security report in 2019, it was said that close to 1 billion records were exposed due to misconfiguration on the cloud security in 2018 alone. So if we were to fast track that to 2021 and beyond, this really shows that there's a serious misunderstanding and a lack of skill on how we need to configure our cloud capabilities from a banking and financial services perspective. How do we ensure that we do this in a secure way? Our teams know exactly what to do to protect the workloads that are being moved to the cloud. If I look back in the early days of cloud computing, security teams were primarily worried about software as a service and whether vendors could be trusted to properly protect their data. These concerns soon faded as organizations started to realize that in most cases, their on-prem cybersecurity capabilities are actually inferior to what a SaaS provider would be able to offer. So as cloud adoption has moved from a SaaS focus or software as a service focus more towards infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, new security concerns are emerging. Unlike SaaS, using infrastructure as a service and platform as a service requires that a bank properly configures the security of their cloud systems. And failure to do this is fast becoming a significant risk. But are we really taking time to pause long enough within this rush to move to the cloud to learn and understand how, as security professionals, we're going to protect our environments and our businesses as we move data to another service provider? Now, moving to the cloud, it's all great. We understand the benefits, but we also need to be thinking about regulations that come with this. If you look at the landscape from a regulation perspective in the banking industry, this continues to be increased and added across the board. 57% of all countries now have data protection laws. That's a huge shift. If you look back to the early 2000s and compare, this was very different. And this is cited by the Privacy Laws and Business International Report of 2019. In the new business world, the only certainties are taxes and compliance. Once upon a time, security leaders could be overheard welcoming new regulations. They were seen as important allies, helping us to justify the acquisition and implementation of security tools. And that's what we leaned on. But in hindsight, perhaps we should have been more careful in what we wished for, because now many organizations are now finding themselves having to manage multiple cybersecurity and data regulations and laws. Those that operate in global businesses need to navigate a patchwork of disparate obligations across multiple authorities. With more of the same in the horizon, how do we learn to swim before we sink? Because this is just adding pressure to our teams instead of reducing what we need to be doing. It seems almost certain that governments and regulation setting bodies across the globe will continue to develop new cybersecurity regulations, as well as new privacy laws that include security considerations. Governments that are in the past were concerned with regulations that may hinder competitiveness are now seeing that breaches are even more of a risk that needs to be taken care of. New laws and regulations can take years before they come into effect. If you think about the GDPR, it took 4 years from the time the first draft was put on the table and the date it was actually entered into force. This time constraint puts uncertainty on a number of regulations that companies will need to consider if you look beyond 2025. So far, there's really been little evidence that policy setting and regulatory bodies are cooperating amongst themselves to align security regulations with the goal of simplifying the compliance efforts. When it happens, it is often because of an industry that has taken an initiative to self-regulate before authorities can put anything in place. It is therefore uncertain how much effort will be directed towards cooperation and alignment of new regulations by governments and other authorities. So what could be the threats then when it comes to regulations and compliance looking forward? So we see a threat that governments worldwide will continue to build new security and privacy regulations with little or no alignment with compliance for global companies becoming a major challenge. So, and how businesses can then respond and security teams can address this is that companies that operate globally will need to invest in an enterprise-grade governance, risk and compliance tool to help manage these disparate regulatory regimes across the board. These are just some of the things that we need to be thinking about when you're looking at the regulations that impact the industry. So I touched on the topic of skills earlier and how this is a major threat in our industry. As we bring in new technologies, how do we ensure that we're still able to deliver the services that are required? It seems certain that by the year 2025, there will still be a huge talent shortage in cybersecurity across the board in any region this is affected and in any industry. The only uncertainty will be how large this shortage is, and we are seeing that it continues to grow. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, there's a gap of 1.8 million unfilled positions within cybersecurity, and this number continues to grow. We're also seeing that more and more colleges and universities are offering cybersecurity programs, but the problem may be greater than just getting the numbers in. Graduates of these educational programs tend to be generalists who still need several years of on-the-job training and advanced learning to get to the specialized skills that are most needed to ensure that the new technologies are able to be secured and implemented efficiently. This is a huge challenge, and how do we solve for this? The first warnings about the cybersecurity skills gap started appearing around 2010. Where there's a report on human capital crisis and cybersecurity saying 30,000 cybersecurity workers, there's a shortage that needs to be closed, and that's in the 2010s. Now that we're seeing this big gap, we need to be thinking more innovatively and more creatively around how we can solve all of these challenges. Now, the question that we most need to answer is that, can technology help us augment some of these things? So the trend that we're seeing is that artificial intelligence could become a key player in augmenting some of these skills. Will it help us with the cybersecurity talent shortage? It remains to be seen, but it's an avenue that we need to explore. We saw that if you look at technology trends, the first cybersecurity products that were marketed, which were powered by artificial intelligence, started appearing around 2014. And by mid-2019, there were over 30 such products that are driven by artificial intelligence. So this really tells us that AI is going to play a key role in the cybersecurity technology stack, because we're just not able to get the skills at the right rate and the right pace coming into our environment. So where does this lead us from a threat and solution perspective? So skills remain scarce and unavailable across the board, but AI security products are able to provide advanced prevention, detection, and response capabilities, which are activities that a lot of times are done by our security analysts in our SOC. So our response here should be to effectively embrace AI defenses. And with this, we'll be able to move our precious security personnel away from technical controls and toward more complex activities that require more thinking, such as your compliance and risk management activities. So the recommendation here would be that for large enterprises like banks, who need to maintain in-house cybersecurity teams, we should really be thinking in the short term, how do we cultivate and understand artificial intelligence defense and the market and how it's grown since the early 2000s? And how do we then use that by separating the hype from the fact, obviously, use that to augment the shortage of skills in our businesses? In the medium term, we need to identify where AI products may fit into our overall security architecture and start adopting that, or else we'll never be able to catch up if we try and do anything else that is different. Right. So really, in summary, without going into much detail and allowing time for questions, we'll summarize that we have three key things that we need to focus on and ensure that we protect our digital bank. We need to learn, to adopt, and to grow. We need to learn to adopt and identify emerging changes in the technology and threat environment. We need to analyze changes to the cybersecurity ecosystem to understand how the business will be impacted. We need to establish a strategic cybersecurity plan that will take advantage of new cybersecurity technologies that will augment what our teams need to deliver. So with that said, I will thank you, wrap up, and allow for questions.
Thank you so much for that, Itumeleng. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any questions, please direct them to Itumeleng. We only have 2 minutes for this session. Fahim, over to you.
Yeah, Makgati, I think you have really covered well, and I want to summarize what you have covered well, and we were actually learning a lot from you. That the cybersecurity solutions requires a multi approach, actionable threat intelligence. We really learned from that one also, and really you have also touched the human component because there's always not a one size fit solution for the cybersecurity. And in general, cybersecurity actually includes the technology and also the human component. Also, that's what you have said. So thank you so much. If there's any question, please write in the chat bot so that we can ask from our expert. So thank you so much, Makgati, and we have really learned from you. And have a nice day. And please join our networking also.
Thank you.